Thank you so much, ma'am.
Morning
Principal.
I'm the principal as well as all the students here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Our principal ma'am, vice principal ma'am, principal sirs, headmistress ma'am, as well as all the senior faculty, as well as the children. They are present and looking forward.
Okay.
Well, shall we formally begin then?
Yes, we can start the session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, please take over Parth, Kumar, and Shubham Raj.
Good morning to respected guest of honors, principal ma'am, vice principals, teachers, headmistress, and my fellow mates. I, Parth Kumar,
Hi, Shubham Raj.
welcome you all on this auspicious day.
The surge of virus in the country, we shifted from attending classes to joining meetings. But we were assured that learning would not stop for us since April 2020 at this boarding cum day boarding school, which we call home away from home.
Yes, it is a lonely time for many students, only child in the family, but our teachers and school have left no stone unturned in keeping us creatively engaged and guiding us to hone our skills and competencies.
Yes, Parth, you are right. But again, learning is an ongoing process, and today we are eagerly waiting to listen to our eminent guests on behalf of the CSKM faculty. We are extremely privileged to have Ma'am Nabeela Wali and Ma'am Shafaq Ihtesham with us from South District Legal Service Authority, Saket, to enlighten us on substance abuse and drug de-addiction.
Along with this, we feel proud in welcoming our distinguished guest, Mr. Fateh Mohammed, who is attending our webinar all the way from Mode. He is a high school teacher in our partner school, Al Qurein, in Fez City, Morocco. I welcome you to our school and we hope to gain lots of knowledge through you.
Yes. Ma'am, may I have the honor to invite Ma'am Nabeela Wali, who is the judge at Delhi's Judicial Service and the secretary of DLSA South District. I request her to enrich us through her esteemed knowledge. Over to you, ma'am, please.
Thank you, Parth and his colleague for such a warm welcome, and really delighted to meet all of you today, though through this online process. But let's just hope that we all get back to meeting physically very soon once we are through with the pandemic. And I'm also glad to know that this is a day boarding school. I was not aware of the fact, as Perth mentioned. So, well, students from which class have joined the session today?
Ma'am, they are 10 to 12.
All right, 10 to 12. That's nice. So most of them would have also started preparing for their board exams, and I'm sure they're still waiting for the exams to take place. And in this pandemic, we've all realized the importance of health. Agree, all of you? Do you all agree that health is such an important thing, and we've all realized keeping healthy, keeping our immunity strong, it is such an important facet in our life. So that is why we thought that DLSA would have this interactive session with all of you. This also relates to an aspect health, of keeping oneself healthy, of keeping one's immunity healthy, of drugs and substance abuse. So I would like this to be an interactive session. I would like to know what all students, what all do you understand when we talk of substance abuse? Anybody? Anybody who would like to mention? Do you understand what are drugs? What are psychotropic substances? क्या होते हैं? Drugs क्या होते हैं? Harmful, toxic effects क्या होते हैं उनके body में? तो anybody who would like to mention harmful substances क्या होते हैं? with which we should keep away?
Yes, come on, students. Anyone?
Meenal, Kshitij, Kaya.
No, I would like to say,
Yes, please.
like alcohol or weeds or something else, tobacco,
Okay, so Ridhiman says
nicotine.
that good. So Ridhiman says that it could be alcohol, it could be weeds and tobacco and all other sort of things. Very good, very good. So Ridhiman, you also understand ki what are there are long term effects, there are short term effects of all these things on our health, and also all other students that anything which is taken in excess can also be bad. So not just these things that Ridhiman mentioned, but there are other things also which one may become used to, which our counselor would be dealing with, and which if you use them very repeatedly may also become. And these are Ridhiman. Apart from what Ridhiman mentioned, some people are also used to smelling the what do you call that correction pen जो fluid आपका जो होता है correction fluid. Okay, and similarly there are other things also. So what are how harmful they are to us and what are the effects, that all will be dealt with by the counselor. And anybody who would like to mention that has anyone come across any such case in the neighborhood, in the family, relatives, friends, wherein anyone, any child, any adult who's been regularly into substance abuse, be it alcohol, be it tobacco, be it smoking, or be it drugs, be it any such kind of a thing, have you noticed the harmful effects personally? आप किसी ने देखा है? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I have seen a lot.
Okay, Ridhiman. So you also Ridhiman understand, जैसे कि Ridhiman ने बताया कि it only does not affect you; it also affects your family, your peer groups, your uh, interaction with the society. All of you agree with that? Okay, so
Yes,
then,
yes, ma'am.
all right, Alec. Okay. So then I will request now, once you hear this session, if all of you, if you do not wish to ask questions directly, you can also write it down in the chat box, right? And let us just hope that this session is beneficial for you and you understand. Otherwise, also, not just socially but legally, also, what are the consequences of indulging oneself in these drugs and these harmful substances, and how one should prevent oneself from indulging into them. Right? So, over to you, Shafaq. We'll start the session and then we'll engage in the question answer round in the end.
Ma'am Shafaq, for a moment, I would like to interrupt. I would be requesting Kaya and Sar to please read your profile, read your resume. Ma'am Nabeela Wali, please help us.
I beg your pardon. I couldn't hear the last.
Actually, ma'am, our children have prepared the resume reading of Ma'am Shafaq. So, you
Please.
read.
So Kaya, yes, right. So
Yes,
we'll ask Kaya.
Kaya
Yes.
and Sarah. Yes, please, Kaya and Sarah, take over.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, our respected guest of honor, for coming here to join us today. Now, I would like to tell you all a little bit more about Madam Shafaq. Did you all know that Madam Shafaq had completed her graduation and post graduation from Jamia Millia Islamia in counseling psychology? Now, I invite my friend Sarah to tell you all a little bit more.
She has been associated with an NGO called SEWAC, primarily advocating for the mental health of children and adolescents.
Sarah, did you know that she is also associated with the DLSA in the South?
Yes, in fact, she is currently associated with the DLSA as a counselor for drug addiction, substance abuse issues, marital discord, legal matters, and so on. Ma'am, we feel proud to have such an extinguished between us. Please do enlighten. Over to you, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much for that warm welcome and for introducing me to everybody. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Right? All right. So I
Yes.
think we can begin today's session. I'd just like to thank the guest of honor for being here. I just found out that you're joining us, sir. It's really nice to have you, and for Nabeela ma'am for taking out her precious time and coming with us today and talking to us. So I'm basically associated with DLSA South as Kaya and the colleague has already introduced. We'll quickly get into the session and to just clear one doubt as to why we're having this today is because DLSA South has taken this initiative to basically create awareness and help us all understand why we should stay away from substances and drugs. And because looking at the statistics today, uh, currently around 12.6 crore people are involved in some kind of drug abuse in India. So, looking at that and looking at young minds like you, people who will go out in the world from now on and engage and come in contact with so many new things and so many new people, it is important that we understand why we should stay away and why we should choose to avoid taking drugs or any kind of substances at any cost. So, we'll begin with me sharing the PPT that has been prepared. Let me know when you all can see it. Is it visible to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
It is
yes,
visible.
yes.
Okay.
I
This is
just like
the
to tell
yes,
you,
yes.
Shafaq, that students will take responding because they are all supposed to be on mute and not speak in between.
All right.
That's the instructions that we normally give to them. So they'll take time to respond. Thank
That's
you.
not a problem. We can wait for them to respond. But like Nabeela ma'am said, we want this to be an interactive session. So when I ask a question, please, students, give me at least one or two responses. Thank you so much. All right.
That's nice.
So let's begin with this project, like this session. So starting with the basics of why DLSA decided to take up this initiative of creating awareness and trying to go out in the public and trying to tell people why alcohol, drugs, substance abuse is bad for your health, is shouldn't be done. The reasons for that are first of all, we've all seen the rise in motor vehicle accidents due to alcohol or drug consumption, and considering that, the government has also made new guidelines as to people who are driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs have to pay a certain amount of fine and have to go to the jail if however it works in the court of law. The other things are that there's a very high increase in domestic violence when it comes to households because of alcohol and drug abuse. There are issues like financial issues, there are issues like social issues that we go through because of being addicted to certain things like these substances. So this is the reason. Now, what is drug? Can any one of you uh, answer what drug is? What do you think are drugs?
Habits.
Ma'am, normal medicines can also be called drugs.
Very good, that is very true. And what else qualifies as drugs?
The normal medicines which we get addicted to them are harmful can be called drugs.
Okay. So that is correct. Actually, the truth is that whatever we take, whether it's through inhalation, whether it's through consumption through our mouth, or whether it is through injection, those things originally were made for a different purpose. So when we take a medication because we're not feeling well, whether it is for internal or external reasons. For example, we've all taken paracetamol when we have a little fever, right? We've all experienced that, or we've for example, taken a medicine for headache, or we've taken a medicine when we have a cold. So all of those medications that are prescribed to us or that are not prescribed to us, but we can go to the chemist and buy them because we are not feeling well, are known as drugs. All right. So drugs are basically medication that we take for internal or external reasons as human beings, or we give to our pets, or are given to animals for basically the treatment of any illness. Now, why do we call these drugs that people take in as, drugs? Like, if they're not used for medical purposes, right? They're used for other purposes. So there are two types of drugs. If we look at the wide distribution of drugs, the first kind is medical drugs, the ones that we take because, we have an illness or we need a treatment that are prescribed to us or not prescribed to us, but we need them in order to get better. Okay. The other kinds of drugs are recreational drugs. Recreational meaning the ones that we take for fun or for enjoyment. Now, looking at the medical drugs first, there are two types of drugs in medical: prescribed drugs, the ones that the doctor writes for us after we go to him because we're not feeling well. These can include antibiotics, for example, when we have a throat infection, right? So we go to the doctor telling them कि गले में दर्द हो रहा है, and we give him all the symptoms, and then he writes an antibiotic for us. So those are medications that we don't take unless the doctor tells us to take them. The other kind of medication is the non-prescribed medication. For example, the ones that I already told you about: paracetamol, aspirin, crocin, the ones that we can go to the chemist and buy because we're not feeling well. Now, recreational drugs are the drugs that are the problem here. They are of two types: illegal drugs and legal drugs. So I'll talk about the legal drugs first. What do you think I mean when I say drugs that are allowed by the government or drugs that are legal? Who would like to answer that?
Non-alcohol.
Yes.
Legal.
But what does legal drugs mean? When I say that some drugs are allowed or some drugs are legal, what does that mean?
Medical drugs. To allow.
There's a medical purpose.
Those are due.
By taking them, you are not breaking the law.
Exactly. That's the right answer. So when I say that there are certain drugs which are used for recreational purposes or purposes that are apart from medical reasons. That means we don't take them because we're ill. We just take them because we enjoy taking them. Those drugs have two categories: legal and illegal. The legal drugs are alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine. These are basically drugs that the government allows. Their sale is allowed, their production and manufacturing is allowed, and their consumption is also allowed. And you're not breaking the law if you consume them. So we see there are a lot of places that sell alcohol, but the government doesn't do anything about it. Why? Because the government allows for people to get a certification, and then they can register themselves and sell alcohol. Similarly, caffeine is a drug that is present in coffee and tea. So I'm sure everybody here has had coffee or tea at least once in their life, right? And we enjoy drinking coffee or tea. So why do we enjoy it? Because it has a drug called caffeine. And I'm sure you must have realized that, whenever we have coffee or tea, we feel energetic, right? Since you're all students, I'm sure it must have happened that, you drink tea or coffee at night to stay up and study for your exams, right? That has happened, right?
Yes.
So it keeps you up at night. It helps you in studying. Why? Because caffeine helps you in getting energy. It's an energy booster, and therefore it is a drug. Understand? So if you consume a lot of coffee or a lot of tea, after a point you'll get addicted to it, and that will cause a headache if you don't consume it, because caffeine is a drug. And similarly, nicotine is a drug which is present in, I'm sure you've all seen ads on the TV about people who smoke and tobacco, who chew tobacco, so they can take nicotine gums, right? So nicotine is also a drug that helps us recover from cigarettes and tobacco. Now let's come to the major concern here, which is the illegal drugs. There are a lot of names given here, as you can all see, like heroin, cannabis, opium, poppy seeds, coca leaves, right? These are all illegal drugs that are being sold, that are being consumed, manufactured, and produced in our country, and they're against the law. So if anybody keeps them, and if anybody produces, manufactures them, or consumes them, you're basically breaking the law. And I mean, if we keep the law aside, it is also extremely bad for your health, and it is also extremely bad for not just your physical health, but your mental health and your social and financial life. Now we'll get into all these drugs. Let's see. So I received a question as to who are these people who are likely to, develop substance abuse or drug addiction issues, right? Let's look at that. Basically, some people experience a lot of social or peer pressure. Now, I'm sure most of the students can relate to this. At times, it happens that our friend is doing something and we have the desire of doing that same thing, right? होता है ना ऐसा कि हमारे दोस्त कुछ कर रहे हैं, either they're going out on a trip or they're going out with friends, or there's some school trip or something like that, and we have the desire to do that as well because our friends are doing it. Does that happen? Have you guys experienced it? Right? So that is called
Yes,
peer
ma'am.
pressure or social pressure, where because our friends or our colleagues, this does not just happen in school or college, it also happens in workplaces. For example, our colleagues are involved in something. For example, they're involved in substance abuse or drug addiction, and they tell us that it's cool to try it, you should try it once. We've seen that a lot in serials and movies these days, which is very common, that a friend would open the other person to the idea कि try करके देख लो, there's no harm in trying, you won't get addicted with one try of cigarette or tobacco or drug, right? So in that case, what happens is basically this is known as peer pressure or social pressure that a person can come under, and because of which they can get addicted to drugs, right? Then just give me 1 second. All right. The other reason why people get addicted to this is because of increased energy. So what happens is basically people have a loud burst of energy, just like you get energy after consuming caffeine, after consuming tea or coffee, and that is the reason why people consume drugs. Rejection is one reason. So a lot of times it happens that people get rejected, whether it is rejection due to job, whether it is rejection in marriage, whether it is rejection in relationships, whether it is rejection from friends or teachers, and because of this rejection, they end up trying or looking at how drugs affect their body, and therefore eventually with regular use they get addicted to it. Another reason is recreation, which we've already mentioned, that people consume drugs and alcohol for fun because they enjoy consuming it. Uh, Another reason for consuming it is anger. So a lot of times people get angry and people get really worked up. Sometimes we have a bad family environment. Sometimes we're angry because of our jobs, because of our inability to achieve our goals, and that can also lead for people to move towards drug addiction or substance abuse or to try it. So this is one major reason that we have seen, that people develop or people look towards drugs as an option, is because they've seen the elder people in their family or their guardians consuming drugs. So, for example, if somebody's father regularly drinks alcohol, the child tends to look at their father, and because we look at our fathers as figures that we follow, the child ends up thinking that it is okay to drink alcohol because my father drinks alcohol, right? And that can be one reason why the child gets indulged in alcohol as they grow up, and then eventually develop an addiction that they cannot let go of. Another reason for getting invested in drug addiction and substance abuse, or why people try it, is because they don't have enough information as to why they shouldn't do it. So, for example, if I am friends with one of you and I come and tell you, "Okay, yaar, ye naya drug aaya hai, let's try this and let's see what it does to our body," and you don't know what are the side effects of consuming that drug, there is a very high possibility that you will, in order to try it because of peer pressure, because of a desire to just try something new, you will end up consuming that drug, like it, because obviously it has increased energy effects and all of that, and then eventually with time, because you'll keep trying it, you will get addicted to it. So therefore, having accurate, complete information as to why you should not try drugs or you should not get involved in any kind of substance abuse is very important. To relieve pain, so I don't know if you've heard this. I think some of you must be aware that a lot of times it happens that people consume medication or pain medication because of a medical reason, and they get so used to taking the pain medication that without the pain medication they start feeling pain in their body, and therefore with time that is also a sign of addiction, that they are taking pain medication to relieve a pain, but because they've taken it for so long that they cannot now stop taking the pain medication. So that's also one reason why people develop this issue. Then another problem is stress. Now stress is a very common issue that we all go through, right? I'm sure all of you have experienced some kind of stress in your life, whether it is related to your exams, whether it is related to your board exams, since you're all going to prepare for your board exams. So सब अभी सब थोड़े बहुत stress में तो होंगे, right? So stress is one reason why children or people tend to move towards substance abuse as an option. Poverty, unemployment is an issue. Poor self-image is an issue where we feel that if we drink a little alcohol, we'll have a lot of confidence in the public. So a lot of people, especially the ones that belong to the upper middle class or the upper class in our society, they tend to consume a little amount of alcohol before they go to social events because they feel that consuming alcohol gives them confidence. So the underlying reason behind that is that they have a poor self-image, right? They are not happy with the image that they have, and therefore to cover that up, they think that consuming alcohol would give them confidence. And that little amount of alcohol over time makes them addicted, and then they become alcoholics. So that's a drawback. And then curiosity, which most of the students experience, right? We're curious about new things, we want to know what it feels like. Therefore, that can be one reason why people get invested in drugs. Now, moving to the effects. So I've told you why people, move towards drugs. I've told you they shouldn't. The question is कि क्यों नहीं करना चाहिए? Why does everybody keep telling you that don't try drugs, don't get into substance abuse? What is the reason behind it? The reason is that there are several ill effects that it can have, not just on your financial, obviously, financially it's affecting you, but physically, mentally, and socially. It has three major effects. As you will all see on your screens, there are three major effects of substance abuse or drug abuse: physical effect, mental effect, social effect. Physically, uh, I'm sure you can all read, but if you had to name a few things, what do you think? Physically, how can the drugs, affect us? Would anybody like to answer? How do you think physically the drugs can affect us? It's on your screen, but
It can damage our body.
yes, it can damage your body, which is a wholesome way of saying that it is not good for your health, right? Now, what are the damages that it can do? Let's look at them individually. So, we've all have heard about how alcohol damages the liver, right? So, it causes liver damage, it causes heart attack, right? A lot of consuming a lot of alcohol and drugs can cause heart attack. High blood pressure. So I'm not sure, but it is a very common issue today that people suffer from high BP. High blood pressure is a result, can also be a result of consuming drugs or substances. All right,
Yes,
and it
true.
can also be because of natural reasons. So a lot of people consume high BP medication, and that is one effect of substance abuse or drug abuse. There are lungs and kidney infection. So we've all seen that ad, right? Before the starting of a movie, when we go, it has been a long time since we went to movie theaters, but when we used to go, we all saw those ads that used to play, right? Where they would take that sponge and release that black tar out of it and tell us that that is the tar that is in our lungs if we smoke. Have you all seen it?
Yes,
Yeah, that
yes.
ad is one of the major ways you can see as to how our lungs get affected because of smoking, whether it's smoking cigarettes, whether it's smoking drugs, or whether it is smoking hookah, which most of us think is not a problem, but it definitely is a problem, and we'll talk about that later. But lung and kidney infections are caused by substance abuse, weakened immune system, and that is the best way of saying that as soon as your immune system is weak, or due to COVID, we have seen this a lot, that the doctors keep telling us that maintain your immune system, because if your immune system is not good, then you will catch infections very easily, right? So substance abuse and drug abuse causes a weakened immune system, and the worst case scenario, you either go into coma or you die because of substance abuse or drug abuse or alcohol abuse. So these are the physical effects. Now, what are the mental effects? We think that we see people suffering from drug and substance abuse, and the only problems we can see are these physical problems or these social problems. But the person who is regularly consuming drugs or substances also has a lot of mental issues that they're going through that are not visible to us, and therefore we should support them and help them in recovering in the best way, because the mental effect is not visible, but it has a huge impact on their life. Now, looking at the mental effect, what it does, it affects your brain cells. Okay, so brains, if it damages your brain cells, then it damages your thinking process, it damages your thought process, it damages your consciousness, damages a lot of things, right? So, and it causes depression and anxiety, which are the leading mental illnesses at the moment in the world. It causes depression and anxiety in the consumer. It causes paranoia. So I don't know how many of you have come in contact with somebody who has consumed alcohol or who is regularly consuming drugs or substances, but they tend to develop this paranoia that the world is out to get them. They constantly feel that somebody is going to harm them, that they're going to get affected in some way or not, and that paranoia develops as a result of consuming drugs and alcohol regularly. There are other mental illnesses that people develop, mental illnesses that can show up in the early life and that can also show up later in life. Psychosis, people develop psychosis because of substance or drug abuse, and insomnia. Insomnia is the ability to not being able to sleep. So they're unable to sleep until they consume drugs. I don't know if you've seen this, but as a counselor who's gone into the field, a lot of times people tell us that they consume alcohol because it helps them sleep at night. So they're like, कि हम सिर्फ शराब पीते हैं ताकि हम सो सके. Which is, I mean, if you look at it, it is a really bad way to train your body that I need alcohol in order to go to sleep. So they will not fight with their family members. They will not abuse or argue. They will not do anything of that sort. They will just drink alcohol and they'll go to sleep. So insomnia is something that they develop over time because their body gets so used to consuming alcohol and then going to sleep. Okay, these are the mental effects. Now, what are the social effects? Physical and mental effects are effects that we feel in our body because we're consuming alcohol or substance abuse, right? But social effect is something that our families or the people around us also experience on a large basis. And because of that, our social relationships get destroyed, whether it is with family members, whether it is with friends and colleagues, whether it is with our spouses. So social effects are that poor academic or job performance. Naturally, when somebody is involved in substance abuse, they don't want to do anything else but do drugs, right? So therefore, their academics and their job performance is affected. Loss of friends and colleagues. There is a huge loss in their friends and colleagues that happens. There is loss of job. So people who regularly consume drugs and substances tend to lose their jobs eventually because they're unable to take control of their life. There are personality changes. They become more irritated over time. If they don't consume drugs, they become agitated. They easily engage in fights and arguments with their family members and friends. Financial problems, as I mentioned several times, naturally, जब आप सारा पैसा you spend all of your money in buying drugs and alcohol, then what will you do? You cannot do anything else, right? So if somebody's married, say if somebody's married and they're regularly consuming alcohol, they're unable to keep their job, they're unable to make their family happy because they don't have any money, they're unable to get an education for their children as well. So you see how it has an overall damaging effect on the entire family and the society on the whole, right? And domestic violence, which is a rising major concern, especially in India, where people consume alcohol or drugs, completely lose their senses, have no idea that they're hurting their family members, and end up engaging in domestic violence, whether it's verbally abusing, whether it's physically beating someone up, or whether it is, mentally torturing them by making them feel bad or hurting their feelings, that all qualifies as domestic violence. These are the effects. Now, what are the treatments for this issue? So I understand that I've said that this is a major issue and these are the effects that it can cause. But how can you sort it? There are certain ways to approach a person who is suffering from an issue like substance addiction or drug addiction and to help them, on the path of recovery. Uh, the major ways that people utilize today are detoxification and medication, where either they go to a detoxification center. A very common term used in Delhi or in India in general is Nasha Mukti Kendra, which I'm sure we've all heard, right? Or rehabilitation centers, where people go, they stay for a period of time, there they get medication in order to stay away from drugs. And they also engage in other recreational activities like they'll exercise regularly, they'll go for jogging, they'll have group meetings, and all of these people who are suffering from drug addiction, substance abuse issues come together and as a group, they try to recover from this issue, right? This is known as, these are detoxification centers that help you recover and that help you come back on the track of recovery. They provide medication as well for the same. So there are a lot of private as well as public detoxification centers that are open in Delhi and all over India. Self-help is one way where, say for example, I decide to do drugs and then I want to get better. So I can just decide, if I have that kind of self-control, to not consume drugs, right? And if I can do that, and if I can not consume drugs or alcohol, then that is a way of self-help where I've decided that this is not good for me, and therefore I'm putting in an effort to stop consuming, right? Now, what do I do as a counselor? Talking therapy is a way of, recovering, which is basically in which we use cognitive behavioral therapy. And in this, we've all heard about therapists, right? We know that therapy is a thing, right? Therapy is basically where, you go to a counselor, you go to a person who is well trained, who is a professional in helping you combat these things, and then you visit them, you talk about your problems. So this brings me to the very important point. uh, Tell me something. We all saw all of those reasons as to why people can engage in substance abuse or drug addiction, right? Problems like curiosity, problems like peer pressure, problems like financial issues, rejection, recreation. Now, apart from recreation, where we're doing it for fun, there are several other reasons, like we've already mentioned, that can cause somebody to, get engaged in drug addiction or get engaged in substance abuse. Now, in order to solve this, we have to understand what the underlying problem is. So, if a person is consuming alcohol, and the reason why they're consuming alcohol is because they face rejection at job, they're unable to get a job. They've given several interviews and they're not able to get a job, and now they're frustrated that maybe I'm not good enough to get a job. So, what are the issues there? The self-image issues. There are rejection at job issues, right? There are financial issues. So this is like a host of issues, group of issues that have come together to make that person feel that perhaps drugs and alcohol is the only way out for me to forget about this stress. So stress is also a concern there. So how do we help this person through talking therapy? The best way to help this person is to identify why they're not able to get a job, understand what are the problems or shortcomings that they're facing when they go for an interview, help them prepare for a good interview, help them get a job, recommend them somewhere, basically help them establish themselves. And once they do, then working on the substance abuse or alcohol problem. Understand? So basically, what talking therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy or counseling in general focuses on, it focuses on identifying the underlying issue, solving that issue, and eventually that would help with controlling drug or substance addiction issues. All right. So that was just one example, but I'm sure you guys can also, like, if I give you time, you can come up with several such examples where, we have to understand the underlying issue and then solve that. And only then we can, help the people. Now, I'll not go into this very, in a lot of detail, but I'll talk about the, Substance Abuse Act in India, and what are the laws that are pertaining to it, so that we just have a rough idea as to how it is illegal and why we should stay away from it. So, according to the Narcotics, Drugs, and Psychotropic Substances Act, which came in 1987, its Section 8 states that your cultivation, that means, so I'm sure in our history lessons in class 8th or 9th, I think we all read about how opioid and indigo plant was grown in India during the British rule, right? Does anybody remember that? It's okay if you don't. It's
Yes,
fine.
ma'am.
I know it's like very old, but I found that chapter very interesting, and that is what comes in here. So there was a point when all of those things were, being cultivated. The issue is that it is still being cultivated, but people are doing it without the government or without the law finding out about it, right? So the law prohibits cultivation, that means the growth of any kinds of drugs, the production, the manufacture, the possession, the selling, the purchase, the use, the import, export. So anything that you do, if at any point you have anything to do with drugs or illegal drugs, you're basically breaking the law, and that's illegal. That includes psychotropic and narcotic drugs, whether it is for recreational purposes or anything like that. Unless they're allowed by law, if they're illegal drugs, you are basically breaking the law. Now, what are the offenses? Not going into the details, but as we can clearly see on our screens, somewhere around 1 year imprisonment, 10,000 fine, rigorous imprisonment of 20 years, and 2 lakhs or more fine to purchase, manufacture, produce, possess of opium, poppy straw, opium poppy. So these are different drugs, right? Opium, opioids, coca plant, cannabis. We've all heard these names. They're very common in social media or media as per se. So there are a lot of penalties that you'll have to pay if you ever engage in this. There is consumption of any narcotic or psychotropic substance, which can lead to a year of rigorous imprisonment and fine of up to rupees 20,000. Now, I know that the fine does not sound like a very large amount, but consider this: the person who's already consuming drugs and alcohol is already suffering through financial losses. For them to arrange an amount like 10,000 or 20,000 is also a lot, right? Apart from the fact that they're already affecting their physical, their mental, and their social life. So the safe bet is to just completely stay away from, any kind of drugs and substance abuse. Then there is this law, which, according to which, Section 31A, which is the death penalty, in which any person who is being convicted of the commission or attempt to commit or abetment of a criminal conspiracy commit any of the offenses under Section 19, 24, 27A, or for offenses for commercial quantity of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances is subsequent to convicted, he may be given the maximum death penalty. So anybody who is into a criminal conspiracy or who is involves commercial quantity of narcotic drugs or anything like that, then the maximum sentence that you can get is of the death penalty, which is phansi ki saza, which I'm sure nobody here would like. So let's just stay away from drugs altogether because it's obviously scary, right? Now, moving on to driving, which is the latest law in India, in Delhi, which is any person who is driving while attempting to drive while being under the influence of any kind of drug or alcohol, they can have the imprisonment of from 6 months to 2 years and have to pay a fine of from 10,000 to 15,000, or can be subjected to both, depending on the issue. Now, looking at this, looking at what DLSA does. So, basically, DLSA provides free legal aid to the weaker sections of the society, ensuring that they have equal representation in the law. Apart from that, we conduct legal awareness programs like we're having today. We monitor POXO cases. POXO cases are basically cases that are related to children, that are related to abuse of children. We assist people in and victims for and their families for counseling. We provide free counseling for victims and families. there is a helpline number called 1516 that people can reach out to if they want to talk to somebody, talk to an expert, talk to a professional, whether it's for counseling, whether it's for legal purposes. Free medical services are provided for the victim. There are one-stop centers that are present in all the court buildings and all the hospitals where people can go in case of an emergency. And Lok Adalats are also organized through DLSA. Quickly getting into counseling. So as a counselor, my job is to basically provide therapy for anybody who is going through drug addiction or alcohol addiction and want to come on the path of recovery. Basically, as a counselor, there are certain things that I need to keep in mind. If any of you go on to become a counselor in the future or pursue psychology, you will understand that there are certain things that are important for us to become good counselors. That include being attentive during our sessions, listening properly, just like you guys are all listening so attentively and patiently. Thank you so much for that. Then issues like empathizing with our patient, with the patients and their problems, and understanding that they're going through a tough time, and therefore we must support them and help them on their path. Understanding and communicating and motivating them, telling them how it is better for them and how we can help them in making their life better and in recovering from issues like substance abuse and drug addiction. Counselors help patients in managing, warning signs, and they help. They take a detailed account of the person, their experience with substance abuse, understanding and ensuring that they don't relapse and they don't fall into this problem again. They help form a support network, whether it is through family or friends. They form emergency relapse plans. What is emergency relapse plan? It is basically, for example, if somebody is trying to recover from drugs or alcohol, and say, for example, they went to a party and their friend told them, okay, let's have a little drink. It's okay. Because of that, they ended up drinking a little bit of alcohol. Now, they were already trying to stay away from alcohol. They were sober, but now they've consumed an amount of alcohol, because of which they'll have the desire to consume it again. Right? That's a relapse that happens. In such a situation, there has to be an emergency relapse plan that has to be planned, that in such a situation, what the person should do. He should reach out to friends or family members who are there for his support. He should reach out to his counselor. He should get himself out of that situation. So it's things like these. There are specific lifestyle changes that patients can do to prioritize their well-being, right? Counselors should meet with family members of patients for their guidance, and they should refer the patients to outside support groups as well and help them get better. Now, DLSA has a lot of counseling centers as per the districts. I and Nabeela ma'am are from the South District, and there are other such districts, like there's the Southeast District, there's the New Delhi District, there's the Central District. There are a lot of such districts where everywhere we have counseling centers established. People can go there and seek help. And the duties of a counselor include interacting, with the people, filling out the interaction sheet, the monthly report, and screening and referring the patient, if and when needed, to another authority. With that, will come to an end to the presentation. These are certain awareness programs that we have conducted, in the past few months or years. Let me just stop sharing my screen. All right. So with that, we come to the end of our presentation. I hope I did not go through too fast, and I hope you guys were able to understand a few basic issues. Some questions were shared to me by Shikha ma'am. I will quickly go through those questions. So I usually ask that why do some people become addicted while others don't become addicted? So there are several reasons why a person may get addicted to drugs or alcohol. Starting out from the fact that we try it for certain reasons, and regular consumption can be a major reason why people get addicted. Another reason why some people are more prone to drug addiction or substance abuse or getting addicted to it is that they're already suffering from some kind of mental issues that they're not able to share with their friends or family members. So the best advice I would give you for that is, if at any point you feel a lot of stress, if at any point you feel a lot of worry about your future, or if you are facing some kind of mental issue that you feel that you need to talk to somebody about, talk to your parents, talk to your teachers, talk to a professional, because turning to drugs and substance abuse is not really a solution. It's going to be a huge problem in the long run. So it is best to talk to somebody about it. And honestly, there is no such thing as somebody who is more prone to or who will get addicted to easily. Because honestly, any of us can get addicted to drugs if we take them for a long period of time. So the best solution is to stay away from them altogether. Take them for medical reasons, take them whenever they're prescribed to us, but we should not take them for recreational purposes at all. Another question by Preetham was that what are the long-term effects of drugs in our body and mind? I think we've already discussed that. Long-term effects are issues, physical issues and mental effects that we go through. The worst long-term effect is death, where we're not there for our family, friends, and or anybody after we consume drugs and alcohol for a period of time. Um, Mira asks, can we get addicted even though we try drug only once? Well, I understand how tempting it is to at least try it once, especially when we've had this huge session on why you shouldn't do it. So whenever we tell somebody don't do it, we have the tendency to go out and look for it and wonder, kick, why are we telling not to do it? There must be some reason, there must be something cool about it. But the thing is that although you cannot get addicted by trying only once, but there is a possibility that you might lack the immediate effects that drugs have on your body, and because of that you are tempted to try it again. Therefore trying it once is just like letting it in once in your life, and once you do that, then it becomes easier to let it in again. Therefore the best thing to do is stay away from it altogether. Athor asks, how long do withdrawal symptoms last for? So the withdrawal symptoms, this is a very good question. When so I've talked about how we should completely stay away from drugs, and if somebody is on the path of recovery, we should help them. Now, when we're helping them, there are certain symptoms that they will experience. These symptoms are known as withdrawal symptoms, where the person who is staying away from drugs or alcohol after consuming them for a period of time will experience, whether it's mentally or physically. Physically, the ones that we can see are things like sweating. They're unable to sleep. They're unable to concentrate. They're unable to focus. People who recently leave drugs tend to feel that if they don't take drugs, they're going to die. So it's the worst case scenario for them. But I'll give you a very good example. So during this entire first lockdown that we had, all the shops that sold alcohol were closed, right? There was no shop that was selling alcohol. But apart from the deaths that were because of COVID, which is really sad, there was no news of people dying because they didn't consume alcohol. Was there? Was there anyone in the news that somebody died because they couldn't drink alcohol or they couldn't take drugs? No, right? This
Ma'am, they drank sanitizer instead.
Yeah, so people did die because of drinking sanitizer. Nobody died because of not drinking alcohol, right? So this tells us that so sanitizer is again I mean they've already died from it, but if they hadn't died from it, there's a possibility that people would think that sanitizer is a good alternative to alcohol, but it is not, right? It causes death. Similarly, there are other alcohols that that have substances added to them that make it illegal to be sold and that make it harmful for your body because they cause death. So the point here is that since nobody died because of not being able to consume alcohol, this tells us that withdrawal symptoms last for about a month or so, and eventually you get better. Therefore, a person who is experiencing withdrawal symptoms must not think that their life is going to end. It is not going to end. It's a temporary period. It is a very stressful period for them because they're in withdrawal from the drug or the alcohol consumption. But that does not mean that that will cause death, and they have to be very strong. The symptoms will last from somewhere around a month or a month and a half, but eventually they'll be better. I hope I answered that question. Another question by Varda is it easier for teens to get addicted to drug than adults? See, it is, I would say it is a little bit more easier because, teens, what teens tend to do is they're more influential and they're not, their brains are still developing. Considering that, That does not mean that adults can consume drugs or alcohol for a period of time without getting addicted. Either way, everybody is, you know, everybody has the chances of getting addicted. So teens can also get addicted, adults can also get addicted. There is no such thing as somebody who is, who has more chance of getting addicted and somebody who has a higher threshold level. No such thing as that. The best thing to do is, again, staying away. Sanskriti asks why certain blackouts are the result of drug use. So, blackouts can be, in extreme cases, a result of drug use. That is because if somebody is regularly consuming drugs and if they're unable to get that amount or a higher amount of drug into their body, their brain tends to shut down because their brain is so used to getting the drug that when they don't get it, it shuts down. So that is the reason why they might end up in blackout. Sometimes people also end up having a blackout because of withdrawal symptoms, but then again, this is all temporary and they will eventually get better. A popular question I receive from students is whether hookah is as bad as cigarette. I'm sure some of you must have tried hookah at least once in your life. I know it's like this trend where it's like hookah doesn't harm anything, right? Hookah is flavored. It's nothing. It doesn't have tobacco in it. But let me tell you, hookah makes hookah has worst effects than cigarette. Why? Because we consume it in far more quantity in comparison to cigarette. Cigarette is probably consumed like one cigarette a day or probably two, not looking at extreme situations. But hookah is something that is already taken in large quantities. The smoke that is inhaled by us is taken in large quantities. And because of that, the smoke that enters our lungs naturally will eventually cause a lot of problem. We've already discussed the physical effects and we saw that lung damage and kidney damage was a major issue there, right? So, at any point, if you are not consuming something for medical purposes, even if you're consuming alcohol for social purposes, social gathering, I understand that it has become a trend recently that you go to a party and you drink alcohol because that's the way to have fun. But I'm sure there are other ways to have fun. You can always explore, right? And rather than engaging in something that will have only temporary benefits, and I wouldn't even call them benefits because you don't remember what you end up doing. So you do more harm than good. So for those temporary happiness that we get, it is best to stay away from them because in the long term, it has really negative effects. And I know that we feel at this age, at the age that the students are, we feel invincible. We feel like we can conquer the world, that nothing is going to harm us. It is a normal feeling. Psychology tells us that this is something that everybody at your age experiences. But it is important to understand that these things are, they stay with us for life, and therefore we must not engage in them because they will only cause problem in the long run. And I know we feel invincible now, but we actually are not invincible. We are mortal people. We can die, and our families and friends and our people won't want that. So for the love of our family members and our friends, and for the love of our own body and our own health, let's just stay from drugs. Let's just stay away from drugs altogether. With that, I will conclude today's session. All right. Let's see.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Shafaq. Thank you so much, Path and Shubham. Over to you now.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an elaborative information. Now I will invite Pranani Mansingh to deliver us the learning outcomes.
Thank you, Shubham. We have always heard about substance abuse in articles and seen scenarios in movies, but it absolutely thrills us seeing it coming from you, ma'am. In this webinar, we learned that substances such as alcohol, marijuana, and nicotine also are considered drugs. We learned about the two types of drugs, medical and recreational. When you're addicted, you may continue using the drug despite the harm it causes. The risk of addiction and how fast you become addicted varies by drug. People develop drug addiction due to many different factors like peer pressure, increased energy, lack of information about side effects, etc. You may need help from your therapist, family, friends, support groups, or detoxification centers to overcome your drug addiction. Our country has also taken measures to control drug and substance abuse by having a Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, which was started in 1987. This includes a law relating to prohibition of cultivation, production, import, and export of drugs. There are different penalties for the different types of offenses, including death penalty for someone with criminal conspiracy or attempt to commit an offense, including narcotic drug. Substance abuse and drug addiction is a disease that is killing the potential youth of our country. It is a disease that affects a person's brain and behavior and leads to an inability to control the use of a legal or illegal drug or medication. Over to you, Parth.
Thank you, Pranani.
I would like to add something before we conclude. Parth?
Yes, Justice Nabeela.
Yes. So I hope that all the students have found it useful and you could understand and you could relate to a lot of things.
Yes,
Right? Okay, so we hope that in future as well we can interact with you on different issues. And as was mentioned in the PowerPoint presentation, this was done by conducted by South District Legal Service Authority, this legal awareness program, and creating legal awareness is just one aspect of the authority. But apart from that, providing legal aid is what the Delhi State Legal Service Authority and the District Legal Services Authority looks into. So, very briefly, I would like all of you to know as to how and what is the relevance of legal aid. Yeah. So, लीगल एड जिसे हम लैंग्वेज में कहते हैं कि कानूनी सलाह प्रोवाइड करना लोगों को, जो लीगल सर्विसेज अथॉरिटीज एक्ट है तो उसके अंदर कुछ सेक्शंस हैं और कुछ लोग डिफाइंड हैं जिनको हम फ्री लीगल एड देते हैं, which also includes all women and children. So it is very important for all of you to know that all women, irrespective of how much they earn, what they earn, their earning criteria, all women and all children are entitled to free legal aid under the Legal Service Authority Act, and they're entitled to it all over India. Right? So any woman, any children, and apart from that, there are other categories of people like differently able, people who are earning below a set criteria, acid attack victims, senior citizens who are earning less than 4 lakhs, so transgenders who are earning less than 4 lakhs. So there are other categories of people also who are entitled to free legal aid. So the idea behind providing free legal aid is so that people can have access to their rights in the court. So what District Legal Services Authorities does is to provide free a legal service authority, a legal service advocate to all these beneficiaries, who can then pursue your matter accordingly, whether it is regarding your rights or any claims that you have, anything. So this is one very important work which is assigned to all the legal services authorities at the state level, at the district level. And of course, creating legal awareness is another aspect. So I hope that the students benefited out of the session, and the principal, can we hear the principal?
Yes, Justice Nabeela.
Yes, so I just hope that in future also we would continue to have more legal awareness programs on different topics with the students.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, and I would like if we could also get a feedback from the students of how well they understood and how what all they would like us to different topics on which they would like to interact with us, so that we can come up with those awareness programs for them.
Sure. We'll do that.
Thank you so much, ma'am Nabeela Wali. I request all the children to please keep their videos on. Please be on the video, children. Please keep your cameras on, videos on. I request Parth and Shubham to please formally invite Madam Principal for her address.
Now I request our respected Ma'am Principal, Dr. Shakuntala S. Jaman, to enlighten us with her words of wisdom.
Okay, so thank you, Parth and Harsh. It was a very enlightening session, I would say, very well presented by Shafaq through the PowerPoint presentation. And of course, the presence of Justice Nabeela added to it. I'd like to tell you, ma'am, that we have had such sessions with Justice Shreya Arora Mehta also in the past. And in fact, she's visited our school also. And we will look forward to your visit also to the school once, the schools reopen, because a personal touch and personal discussion with the children really yields immense results. And the agenda of DLSA to educate students all over the country and in Delhi is a very, very good initiative. And I have seen the positive effects of these webinars and interactions with the students, because there are so many things that they are just not knowing. And to make sure that they know them, particularly the legal part of it, and what are the punitive aspects of, such things, definitely helps a lot of students to refrain from, becoming too adventurous. In the past, we have had certain feedback forms which were sent to us by the DLSA, which we circulated to our students, and they gave the feedback as to what they understood, what they learned, and it was also something that they could keep and remember the laws, etc. by. So we would appreciate a form, if it could be circulated once again. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart to have taken this initiative, to have continued the wonderful efforts of DLSA with our school students, and educating them to become more better citizens of the country, to more informed citizens, to follow the laws, to respect the laws, and which I think is one of the most important aspects of education and development of a good human being. So thank you, Justice Nabeela. Thank you, Shafaq. Thank you, Muhammad Feta. And thank you, everyone else, all the children and the students and the teachers who participated. And we'll take it forward, definitely.
Thank you, Shakuntala ma'am, and thank you to all of the teachers and students here. And I'll surely ensure that the feedback form is sent to your school, and then you can have it circulated so that we can also know on what are the issues the children would like to interact with us.
Yeah, myself, I'd like to thank you all for organizing this webinar. It's really very nice. I'd like to thank as well Shafaq for her nice presentation. Is very simple, clear, but to the point. So thank you very much for organizing this webinar, which really contribute to sensitizing students to the dangers of these drugs. Thank you very much.
I think I would also like to thank everybody for coming today and for listening to me so patiently, for asking those questions, and for I hope that you have something to take away from this presentation today, and to learn as to why we should stay away from drugs and alcohol altogether. I think I've said it a million times now, but yeah, thank you so much for coming and for listening to me. Thank you, Nabeela ma'am, for taking this initiative, and thank you, Principal ma'am and Shikha ma'am, for having us here and collaborating with us so we could do this. We'll surely have more such sessions in the future. Ma'am has already.
We hope so.
Okay, I think with that we can end today's session. I'll hand it over to Shikha ma'am then.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Shafaq. I formally invite our Vice Principal, sir, Dr. Mr. S.K. Thakur, sir, to please deliver the vote of thanks.
Good
Thakur, sir,
afternoon, everyone.
it's over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ma'am Shikha. And first of all, I would like to tell thanks to Ma'am Nabeela Wali, who is the judge in Delhi Judicial Services, also the secretary in DLSA South, and our resource person, Ma'am Shafaq Ihtesham. And Ma'am Shafaq, in advance, I would like to say Happy Eid to you as well as to all your family members, because tomorrow we are going to celebrate Eid also. And you have been the counselor in DLSA South. Topic was well chosen by DLSA, and first of all, I'd like to thank to Ma'am Nabeela as well as Ma'am Shafaq, who has given precious time for our staff member as well as for our students, because these students, especially in this age, from 14 years to 17 years, they need to be educated in those areas. And you have rightly said that drug damages lungs, kidneys, heart, and other parts of the body as well. So certainly we as well as a staff member and our students, they will be able to understand, and certainly we will educate our children, whatever the guidelines you have just given to all of us, and our student must be educated on those lines. And certainly I would like to mention one thing here. Our school is looking after by Dr. Shakuntala S. Jaman, the principal, who herself is MA in psychology as well as PhD in the same subject, and from IIT Delhi. So we are very much fortunate to have a very efficient, very effective leader under our head, and she has been looking after all our children, all our staff member as per her guidance. And of course, I want to thanks to all our student committee who delivered, who organized this program in well-ordered manner. And of course, our event coordinator, Ma'am Shikha also. Thank to all of you. And once again, ma'am, you have already said you love to come visit to our school whenever the lockdown will get over, or there will be a physical schooling will start. So we will wait for that. And I would like to mention one thing here. DLSA has been kind enough that since last 5 years, we have been organizing such kind of activities under your leadership. Only thing that this year our judge has been changed, who Ma'am Nabeela Wali is there. Rest we have been organizing this kind of activity, and we will love to organize some similar kind of activity for our students as well as for our staff members. Thank you. All the best. God bless you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes. With gratitude to all the esteemed personalities over here today, I conclude with the prayer that may this Eid strengthen world peace and prosperity. May all be healthy and safe, secure, and there may be peace all over the world. There may be happiness all over the world, all again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am Shafaq, may we